Hey there everybody, welcome to Auto Bears, and this handsome little beast is the new Peugeot 208. When it comes to small family hatchbacks, Peugeot's had a strong history in the segment, dating all the way back to the original 205. However, for this latest generation of 208, they're taking on the likes of the highly successful and best performing Ford Fiesta and also the grown-up Volkswagen Polo. And I've had this latest generation of 208 for a week to let you know if you should consider it in what is still a very competitive segment. When it comes to styling, Gilles Vidal at Peugeot has clearly come up with another winner with this new 208. I mean, I can't think of another car in its segment that actually comes as close to looking as good as it. And if you think you do, definitely put it down in the comments section below. But what I love with the new 208 is that it actually looks different to other Peugeots that are currently on release. Everything else looks a lot more angular, but yet the new 208 looks very curvaceous and at the same time looks a lot more sexier. And I also love as well how Peugeot have been very bold in their design language, with the lion's teeth, or lion's fang should I say, integrated into the bumper, and the lion's claw integrated into the headlights. And if you want to go for the best looking trim line, then definitely the GT line here, because that gives you things such as full LED front and rear lights and no 17-inch alloy wheels. But if you think you know of a better looking car, then by all means put it down in the comments section below. Now, if I did have any criticism to the design language of this new 208, it is actually the petrol filler cap, which looks incredibly huge. And that's because for the first time you can get the 208 as a full electric car, so it needs a bigger filler cap in order to plug in for that faster charging. But other than that, you know what, I think this is the best looking car. And another thing I really do like about it, you've got real exhaust pipes at the back of the car, not fake ones. And I think that's enough of looking at the outside of the new Peugeot 208. Let's have a little look at the inside. Sat in the front of the new 208, you are greeted by a very bold interior design, and it definitely matches the exterior. And then once you're sat in the driver's seat, you find that the seats themselves are very comfortable and even hold a big bear like me in place. There's plenty of adjustment in the seats themselves, and also with the steering, where you got both rake and reach adjustment. So getting the perfect driving position is easy. However, do note that if you like to sit very low in your car and like the steering set very high, you will find the top of the steering wheel will block your view of the digital display, and that is now a common trait with modern day Peugeots. Also, I really do like the designs of these seats with the use of leatherettes and fabric, and I do like the green stitching going throughout the cabin, and it does give a nice kind of sporty feel. Interior quality is also pretty good as well. We've got soft touch plastics on top of the dash, and on this centre section here we're like a faux carbon fibre effect. On the inserts of the doors we have got a bit of leatherette as well to rest your legs on, but apart from that everything else is hard scratchy plastics. So something like a Renault Clio will definitely beat it in terms of interior quality or the use of materials. However, the actual interior hard plastics do feel of a good quality, and I do think they'll actually stand the test of time. And then on this centre section here we've got a lot of piano black plastic, which does give an air of sophistication to the cabin again. However, it is prone to smudging and fingerprints, so just be aware of that. We've also got the upgraded 10-inch display. That is an optional extra on the GT line, and it just fills the interior really nicely. It does actually sit very nice and high on the dashboard. And there are a couple of features here on the interior of the 208 which really do feel very premium, and I've only ever seen them in more kind of expensive premium brands. So firstly, we've got a frameless rear view mirror, and the last time I saw that was actually on a top of the range Skoda Superb, and that was a car that was nearly touching 40 grand. And then the interior lights themselves, they just need a little bit of a press. However, they're not going to work in here because I have got the key and everything turned off, but they are actually LED lights and they're touch sensitive. Again, they're very bright, it looks really lovely, and it does give a premium feel to the cabin. Now, when it comes to interior cubby spaces, we've got some decent sized door bins, and there is an allocated slot there to put bottles in. However, they're not lined with any fabric, so any loose items you chuck down there is going to rattle around a bit. And then we have got a little area in front of the gear lever, and at first glance it looks like it's lined with rubber, but it's not. It is hard plastic, and if you do chuck again any coins or loose items, it is going to rattle around a bit there. we got a couple of cup holders here, and one of them is relatively shallow and the other one is quite deep. But if you do go for the manual version of the 208 and you have a bottle in there, it's definitely going to get in the way of changing gear. And then underneath the armrest, you'd think there'd be like a tiny little bit of cubby space, but if you watch, I can put nearly half of my arm in there. So again, that's actually a really decent cubby area. It is again not lined with any fabric or rubber, so any kind of loose items are again going to rattle around in there. And then we come to the glove box, and this being a Peugeot, we know exactly what's going to happen. It is almost useless because Peugeot are a little bit lazy in getting the fuse box transferred over to the same side as the steering wheel, so as a result we got half a glove box. You can't even get the book pack in there. That's kind of how small it is. But other than that, it's not too bad. We have got a secret cubby, which is just up here on the black plastic display on the centre dash. And we've also got a USB-C and a USB socket here, which kind of shows that Peugeot are getting very up to date with their inputs, as a lot of cars out there now do kind of share those types of input sockets there. But if we press it, it opens up to unveil a little wireless charging pad. So if your phone does do wireless charging, you can put it in there. However, if it doesn't, you can take it out and just rest it there on display. So you can actually have it plugged in to either the USB or USB-C, and that way it's not tucked away and you've got no wires snagging whilst it's hidden. That's actually a really clever feature, and you can also find it on the new 2008. But all in all, I just really love this interior. The steering wheel feels really nice on the 208. It is small, that is another trend now with Peugeots, but it does suit the 208 because it is a small and fun little family hatchback. And then beyond it, we have got the iCockpit from Peugeot. However, it's now 3D and it is absolutely glorious to watch. And as you're driving along and you've had it set, it does work really well. I love the animations and I do love the kind of effect it gives you. If I had one negative to it, is that the actual animations themselves do appear a little bit laggy. Now, it's not actually a single screen. It's actually kind of like a head-up display that you get in a fighter jet. So there is a projection from the top of the nacelle area, and that actually works really well. But it does feel as though it's a work in progress. You kind of feel it just needs to kind of be just tweaked a little bit, but then again, the next generation will probably have it honed nicely. And then finally, we've got the piano keys, which is now a new trait, or a common trait now on new Peugeots. So we have the standard piano keys, and then behind, we've actually got some touch sensitive buttons that work really well. So it does mean that everything's kind of kept together and there's no buttons strewn across the cabin. So the piano keys themselves tend to operate the air conditioning system. We've also got one for the hazard lights and then one for the locking, as you probably heard. And then just behind it, all those extra buttons are actually for the infotainment system and are shortcut buttons to help you out there. So Peugeot, I think, have listened to a lot of their customers in terms of getting shortcuts and making the infotainment system a lot better. And we will go on to that later on in the driving part of the review. And we've also got an electric handbrake on the GT line, and we've also got the drive mode select just behind it. Again, we'll go on to that as we're driving in that section of the review. But all in all, before I seem to kind of lose my voice, I really love the interior of this new 208. It is just following this trend that Peugeot are doing. It does look very familiar if you have already got a new Peugeot, but if you're unfamiliar with it, it is just absolutely brilliant. But that's enough of the front of the new 208. Let's have a seat in the back. Sat in the back of the new 208, things start to get a little bit claustrophobic back here. So firstly, that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, I've got hardly any knee room, and if I sit up straight, my head is rubbing against the ceiling because of that sloping roof line. So I would definitely say that the 208 is more suitable for children than it is for adults. You could definitely not get 3 adults sat in the back of the 208, but yes, you could get 2 of them in here for shorter journeys. Now, when you have got kids sat back here, they will be absolutely fine with the windows. They are of a decent size, but they don't open all the way down. And in terms of younger kids, you have got Isofix supports on the outer seats, but to access them you've got to pull this zip up out the way, and it feels quite stiff and a little bit flimsy. I get a kind of feeling that after a while they might break, but don't worry, you do get a third Isofix support, and that's on the front passenger seat, so that's definitely something. The door bins are of an okay size. You can put a small bottle of drink in there, and you do get airplane style pockets on the backs of the front seats. However, there is no armrest or cup holders there. And then you do get 2 USB charging ports as a bonus on this GT line model. But all in all, things just start to feel a little bit claustrophobic and a little bit dark back here, so it's definitely more suitable to kids. Also, getting in and out of the back seats is actually a little bit difficult, especially someone of my size, as you'll see here, because there is actually a bit of plastic that sticks out, which does make it a little bit difficult and actually makes the aperture for the back seats quite narrow. So again, just be aware of that, especially when installing a child seat. But all in all, it's kind of, yeah, it's fine for kids, but not really for adults. And that's enough of the back seats. Let's have a little look at the boot. Opening the boot of the new 208 presents you with 311 litres of space, which is exactly as what you get from a Ford Fiesta, but does put it a little bit behind the likes of the Volkswagen Polo and Seat Ibiza. Okay, granted they are the same car underneath. But once the boot is open, you are greeted by a nice square load area, but there is a bit of a load lip, so just be aware when loading and unloading heavy items. But it should be a perfect size for getting your weekly shopping in. Now you do get a couple of nice features. You do get a space over spare wheel underneath the boot floor, and there's a little bit of strapping here if you want to keep something in place. And that's about it. Actually a little bit disappointed because you don't get a 12-volt socket, you don't get any tethering hooks, and you don't get any shopping hooks either. It just seems to be that Peugeot have kind of put the focus elsewhere on the 208 and just slightly neglected the practicality side of the car, which is such a shame because it all started so positively, but it definitely does seem a case of form over function with this new 208. And if you do decide to put the seats down, firstly you've got nowhere to put the parcel shelf, so you're going to have to leave it at home, and secondly there will be a bit of a ridge where you got the base of the seats, so again just be wary when loading and unloading any heavy, large, bulky items. But all in all, it's still going to be very usable for day-to-day usage, and as I said, you can easily get a week's worth of shopping in. But you know what, I think that's enough of looking at the practicality side of the new 208. It's time we take it for a drive. So once you get driving in the 208, first impressions are actually very good. It feels very comfortable, very easy to drive. The steering wheel feels nice in your hands. You are graced with that gorgeous 3D iCockpit from Peugeot, and yeah, it all starts out feeling very comfortable. When it comes to visibility, however, there is a little bit of a compromise there, and it clearly shows the 208's form over function design. So we have got some reasonably thick A pillars, but I've not found myself looking around them at junctions as of yet. But also the B pillar and C pillar are also pretty thick, especially when looking over your shoulder. The C pillar is very pronounced, and it does create quite a severe blind spot. And one thing you don't get is blind spot monitoring on the 208, so just be aware of that. But first impressions are actually very good. The wing mirrors are of a good size, and they don't really give off that much wind noise. And then the car itself, as I said, just feels really nice and comfortable. So yeah, first impressions are pretty good, bar the visibility. So technically there are 4 trim levels to choose from in the 208 range. The entry level active, the Allure, the GT line, which is what I've got here, and the top of the range GT. However, the GT is only reserved for the E208, or the electric version of the 208. If you go for a combustion engine, this GT line is the top of the range, so technically I'm in the top of the range car. But if you could get the GT with a combustion engine, I would still choose the GT line as my pick of the trim levels. You just get everything that you need spec wise, and you also get the visual appeal of having things like full LED lights, which really do look nice, that contrasting two-tone paint job, and also the 17-inch alloy wheels, and you don't actually end up spending too much money. Now I have got a couple of optional extras fitted to this car. I've got the Cumulus grey paint job, I've got the 10-inch touchscreen infotainment system as an upgrade from an 8-inch touchscreen, and I've also got adaptive cruise control, which will definitely come in handy if you do a lot of motorway miles. And you know what, it's still reasonably priced compared to a lot of its rivals out there. So just be aware, if you do just want to go straight for the top of the range, you will be going for the electric version of the 208, and of course, being an electric vehicle, the price will be substantially more than if you went for a combustion engine. So just be aware of that. So engine choices with the 208, excluding the EV, are 2 petrols and 1 diesel. Now the petrols are both 1.2 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged units, producing 100 and 129 brake horsepower. The diesel is a 1.5 litre turbocharged unit, and that produces 100 brake horsepower. Now all of the engines bar the entry level one get an 8-speed automatic only, but the entry level engine, you get the choice of either a 6-speed manual or an 8-speed automatic. Now I've got the more powerful 129 brake horsepower petrol engine, and you know what, it's a really nice performer. With 129 brake horsepower, it's a little bit more power than most of its rivals. They tend to be around the 115 to 120 brake horsepower mark, and it just means that the 208 feels very nippy. It's a lot of fun to drive around town, and it also means you've got that power there to overtake if you're going on an A road or on the motorway. 0 to 60 takes around 8.5 seconds, so yeah, you can feel that nippiness whilst you're driving. Economy wise, I should be getting around 45 to 51 mpg on a combined cycle, but when the car was delivered to me, it only had 200 miles on it, so really the engine hadn't been fully run in, and I've only done like an extra 180 miles or so. So in terms of economy, I'm getting around about 35 miles per gallon around town, which I actually think is pretty respectable, but I know on a longer journey I should easily get over 40 mpg. So it is actually a really good all-round engine. Now, a personal opinion with cars like this is I don't like the fact that they offer diesels. I know there are some people out there that will go for them, but it just spoils what this car is all about. It's a fun little family hatchback. The diesel, which is great and can be offered with something like the 2008, or the new 2008 I should say, would be perfectly suited for it. It's a bigger car and you can feel yourself perhaps doing a few more miles in it. But for the 208, I personally would just recommend one of the petrol engines, and really you can't go wrong with either. If you do want to save yourself a bit of money, then of course go for the lesser powered 1.2. But other than that, you know what, this 129 brake horsepower is a really nice performer, and I really actually do like it. So what's the ride and handling like in the new 208? Well, for the most part, it rides really well. Deals with the bumps and imperfections absolutely fine. It feels very compliant. If you go over some of the larger kind of potholes and manhole covers, it does boom and resonate into the cabin, and you can get a bit of vibration coming through the steering wheel and also through the pedals, so just be aware of that. Now, the main intrusion I've actually come across whilst I've had the 208 is whilst you're driving on a poor bit of road surface, is there is quite a bit of tyre roar that comes into the cabin. But other than that, it's absolutely fine. Now, when it comes to handling, this tends to be a bit of a sweet spot for the Peugeot small hatchback, and the same can be said with this new 208. With the small steering wheel, it does feel very fun and nippy to drive. It's really quite nice. Now, the steering is pretty light. I'll say when it comes to kind of parking and stuff, it's an absolute doddle. But when you are driving at speed, you do lose a bit of that steering feel, so I wouldn't say it was as sporty as something like a Seat Ibiza. That's definitely got the class beaten in terms of sporty handling. But other than that, in terms of just driving every day, you'll be absolutely fine with the new 208. It's very easy to drive, and we've got things like front and rear parking sensors, and that reversing camera, bar the visibility or the image quality, it's an absolute doddle to park. It really is nice and easy. So yeah, in terms of ride and handling, it does the job really well. Now, something you get on cars like this are the drive mode select buttons, and with the 208 it's no exception. You do get a little drive mode select switch here just behind the electric handbrake. Now, if you've seen my review of the Big Brother, the 3008, you'll know that I really didn't like when you put the car into sport mode. You get a sound that's pumped into the cabin, and it did not sound good at all. Now, it seems to be that Peugeot have been listening to a lot of their customers, because when you put the 208 into sport mode, firstly, you get a bit more of weight in the steering wheel, you get more response from the accelerator pedal, and you also get noise pumped into the cabin. But whereas the 3008 sounded horrible, this it actually sounds a lot better. It does sound very sporty. Now, granted, again, it is noise that's pumped through the cabin, but you know what? I don't mind putting the 208 into sport mode. The 308 just sounded horrible. That noise just... But this is just so much better. So you can put this into sport mode, you can have a little bit of fun, and it should be absolutely fine. But, and this is something I will mention actually as well, in regards to the ride and handling, is that the 208 does lean in the corners, and again, it's another reason why something like the Seat Ibiza is a much more sportier car. This, if you're going round a roundabout quite aggressively, it will lean quite a bit. Not so much that it's going to make you feel kind of seasick, but it just definitely loses any kind of sportiness if it was going up against the Ibiza or even a Ford Fiesta for that matter. So what are my thoughts on the new Peugeot 208? Well, when it comes to styling, once again, Peugeot have really trumped themselves, and I think they've trumped other manufacturers and rivals, because no one else can get anywhere close to this in terms of overall design. Now, yes, something like the new Renault Clio has got a more higher quality interior than the 208, but the design just isn't there. And even something like a Volkswagen Polo or a Ford Fiesta now just looks boring in comparison. Even if you go with lots of options and LED lights and everything, it just won't look as striking as this. Every time Peugeot now brings out a new model, I'm really kind of in the back of my mind keen to see what they're going to come up with next, because I mean, I don't know how they're going to trump this 208 with the next generation of 208 or 209. I just don't know how they're going to do it, but I really am looking forward to see what they come up with. Now, yes, the 208 isn't perfect. Practicality wise, it is lacking. I really wish this had more rear space and the boot just had a few more features. I mean, a 12-volt socket is just one of the things that most, if not all of its rivals, will tend to have. But the thing is, as I said, Peugeot are going to sell loads of these. It looks brilliant. It drives really, really well. If you have got a young family, then the practicality side, you're not even going to listen to me. Kids will fit fine in the back of this. And not only that, you've got all the technology. You've got the 3D cockpit, the lovely 10-inch screen, and it is very competitively priced against its rivals in what is actually one of the most competitive segments, going up against the likes of the new Renault Clio, the Ford Fiesta, Volkswagen Polo. This really can hold its own against them, and that's why it's brilliant that if you are looking for a small family hatchback, I think this is definitely in the top, probably the top 3 of best cars out there. It's not as grown up as the Volkswagen Polo, but then again, a 208 is not meant to be. And yeah, it's just a lovely car. I don't think it's class best, but it is near the top, definitely. And I do recommend going for a test drive and having a sit in one, definitely, at a dealership. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my review of the new Peugeot 208. As always, if you've got any questions about the 208 and my time with it, please put them down in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and hit that bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the Auto Bear, bring out a new video. Of course, I'm always on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and I always advise you follow on there as well for additional content, including still images and live videos. But guys, I think again this is a wonderful step up for Peugeot in terms of their design ethos. I mean, nothing else looks like this. It's an absolutely brilliant little family hatchback. I think it would definitely be one to consider if you are looking for one, and if you do drive something like the Fiesta or the Volkswagen Polo, definitely have a drive of this, and also the Renault Clio as well. But guys, once again, have yourselves a wonderful day and a wonderful time. As I'm recording this, we have got the COVID-19 or the coronavirus pandemic currently worldwide, so make sure you are looking after yourselves, make sure you're washing your hands and singing happy birthday 420 times a day. But just, guys, take care, look after yourselves, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Take care and bye-bye. Okay, sorry, before you go, there is one extra little niggle I just want to mention before I let you guys go off and enjoy your day. Now, just imagine you've been driving, you've come to a complete halt, the gearbox is in park, the electric handbrake is on, and then you turn off the engine. Now, if you're in something like a Volkswagen Group product and you've got your phone connected via Bluetooth, you get a little reminder to say, don't forget your phone, which I think is really brilliant and really handy. Now, you don't get that in the Peugeot, and the reason I mention it is because you've got that secret cubby space with the wireless charging. And I have on about 4 or 5 occasions this week got out the car, started walking to work or walking to my destination, and just gone, oh bugger, I've forgotten my phone, and had to go back to the car for it. So it's a brilliant little feature, and I love the fact that your phone is hidden away. It's not on display, unless of course you have to have it plugged into one of the USB charging ports. But just be aware that you might forget your phone if you leave it in there, and I'd love Peugeot to come up with some sort of reminder just to let you know you got a phone in the car. So yeah, that's my little niggle, and on that note, guys, go away, bugger off, have yourselves a great day, take care, bye bye.